When we think about ABBA, most of us remember glittering costumes, catchy tunes like Dancing Queen, and concerts filled with joy and energy. But behind all the music and fame, there was also pain, heartbreak, and silent struggles that few knew about. At the center of this emotional storm was Björn Ulvaeus, one of ABBA's main songwriters and guitarists. He helped create some of the most famous pop songs ever written, but his personal life was far from perfect. His marriage to AgnethaFältskog, ABBA's blonde lead singer with the angelic voice, looked like a fairy tale from the outside. Fans saw them as the perfect pop couple, young, talented, and deeply in love. Yet, as time passed, cracks started to appear in their relationship. What seemed glamorous on stage was, in reality, full of struggles at home. Björn would later reveal that their marriage turned into a nightmare, filled with misunderstandings, distance, and emotional wounds that never fully healed. Some of these moments became the inspiration for ABBA's most heartbreaking songs. Perhaps the clearest example was the 1980 hit The Winner Takes It All. On the surface, it was just another ABBA ballad, but in truth, it was Björn pouring out his feelings about his broken marriage. The cruel twist was that Agnetha herself had to sing it, turning private heartbreak into a public performance that millions of people heard. She would later admit it was one of the hardest moments of her life, standing in the studio and singing her ex-husband's words about pain and loss. This moment gave the world one of ABBA's greatest songs, but it also showed how personal suffering can become art. Still, The Winner Takes It All was not the only time their marriage struggles came to light. Björn has recently spoken more openly about the difficulties he faced with Agnetha, and how those early years of fame and love slowly turned into some of the darkest days of his personal life. To understand how Björn and Agnetha reached that painful point, we need to look back at how their story began. Björn Ulvaeus was born on April 25, 1945, in Gothenburg, Sweden. His family lived a simple life, with his father working at a paper mill. They didn't have much money, and life in post-war Sweden was not easy. But even in those modest conditions, Björn showed a deep love for music. By the time he was 5, he was already humming melodies he heard on the radio. At 11, he received a guitar from his cousin, and it became his closest companion. While other boys played sports, Björn spent hours practicing chords, listening to American rock records, and dreaming of becoming a musician. His classmates sometimes teased him for being shy and different, but music gave him comfort. In his teenage years, he started playing in local bands and slowly built up confidence on stage, though he often battled stage fright. His first big step into the professional music world came in the early 1960s, when he joined a folk group called the Hootenanny Singers. They gained popularity in Sweden, touring the country and recording songs that were loved by local audiences. It was during this time that Björn crossed paths with another musician, Benny Andersson. Their friendship and creative partnership would eventually change pop music forever. But Björn's personal life also took a big turnaround this time. In 1969, while touring, he met AgnethaFältskog, a rising star in Sweden who had already found success with her own solo songs. She was young, beautiful, and extremely talented. Their connection was instant, and within a short time, they were seen as one of Sweden's brightest musical couples. They married in 1971, and at first, everything seemed perfect. They even welcomed their first child, Linda, in 1973. To the outside world, it looked like the beginning of a dream life, two stars in love, making music together, raising a family, and being adored by millions. Yet, as their careers grew and ABBA became a global sensation, the pressures of fame began to affect their relationship in ways they hadn't expected. The formation of ABBA changed everything for Björn and Agnetha, both professionally and personally. In the early 1970s, Björn Benny Andersson, Agnetha, and Frid Lyngsted, often called Frida, decided to perform together as a group. At first, they struggled to get recognition outside Sweden. Their early singles didn't do well internationally, and critics mocked their style. Even their band name, ABBA, which was created by combining the first letters of their names, was laughed at in the Swedish press because it was also the name of a canned fish company. But the group pushed forward, determined to prove themselves. Their big breakthrough came in 1974 when they entered the Eurovision Song Contest. With the song, Waterloo, their colorful costumes, catchy performance, and joyful energy captured the attention of millions. They won the contest, and almost overnight, ABBA became international stars. For Björn and Agnetha, this success was thrilling but also exhausting. Fame meant constant touring, recording, and media attention. Fans followed their every move, and journalists were eager to know about their personal lives. For a young married couple, the pressure was immense. They had to balance being parents with being global superstars, and often, their family time was sacrificed for work. Agnetha, in particular, struggled with the demands of fame. She was known for her striking beauty and captivating stage presence. But offstage, she was shy, anxious, and preferred a quiet life. Traveling constantly, dealing with obsessive fans, and being away from home took a toll on her mental health. She sometimes described herself as feeling trapped by fame. Meanwhile, Björn was dealing with his own battles, including stress, long working hours, and the burden of being one of the group's main songwriters. The cracks in their marriage began to show during this period. What had once been a loving partnership started to feel strained. Arguments became more frequent, and emotional distance grew between them. Still, they continued to perform together, smiling on stage while privately drifting apart. Their personal struggles were slowly being reflected in their music, with songs that carried deeper emotions of longing, sadness, and heartbreak. As the 1970s went on, ABBA became one of the most famous pop groups in the world. Their songs were topping charts in Europe, America, and Asia. They sold millions of records, and their concerts were packed with screaming fans who wanted a glimpse of the Swedish superstars. But for Björn and Agnetha, the success came with a heavy personal price. Being constantly on the road meant they were rarely at home with their daughter, Linda. When their second child, Peter, was born in 1977, Agnetha felt the pressures of motherhood even more strongly. She wanted to be with her children, but touring commitments often kept her away. This created tension in the marriage, as Björn was more focused on writing, producing, and performing. He was passionate about ABBA's global rise, while Agnetha longed for a quieter life. The difference in their desires slowly pushed them apart. Another problem was that fans and the media treated them like a perfect couple, which put even more stress on their already fragile relationship. Behind the glamorous photo shoots and TV appearances, they were often exhausted, unhappy, and struggling to communicate. Agnetha herself later admitted that fame made her feel lonely, and even when surrounded by thousands of fans, she sometimes felt isolated. Meanwhile, Björn admitted that he often escaped into work rather than dealing with the emotional problems at home. The more successful ABBA became, the more difficult their personal lives grew. By the late 1970s, their marriage was in serious trouble. Small arguments turned into bigger conflicts, and the distance between them widened. Finally, in 1979, Björn and Agnetha announced their divorce. The news shocked the world, as ABBA fans had idolized them as a dream couple. Yet, the breakup did not stop them from performing together. They continued working as bandmates even while dealing with heartbreak, which created some of the most emotional songs in ABBA's history. The divorce between Björn and Agnetha was not only a personal tragedy, but also a turning point in ABBA's music. In 1980, Björn wrote The Winner Takes It All, a song that openly reflected the pain of a breakup. Many fans instantly guessed it was about his separation from Agnetha, and Björn later confirmed that it was inspired by his personal experiences. The song was written from the perspective of someone who had lost everything in love, while the other person seemed to come out stronger. What made the song even more heartbreaking was the fact that Agnetha was the one who sang it. She had to stand in the studio and deliver a song written by her ex-husband about their failed marriage. Listeners around the world could hear the raw emotion in her voice, and many believe it is one of the most powerful vocal performances in pop history. Agnetha herself admitted it was extremely painful to record, as she felt like she was exposing her soul to millions of people. Björn later said he did not write it to hurt her but simply to express his feelings. Yet, the situation highlighted just how much of their personal lives were being turned into public art. The song became one of ABBA's biggest hits, topping charts across the globe and being hailed as a classic. It showed that even though their marriage had ended, the musical connection between Björn and Agnetha remained strong. Ironically, their most successful song about heartbreak came from their real-life heartbreak. For fans, it was both beautiful and tragic. A reminder that behind the glamour of ABBA, there were real human struggles. The Winner Takes It All remains one of the most iconic breakup songs ever written, and it has kept people talking about Björn and Agnetha's marriage for decades. After their divorce, Björn and Agnetha tried to keep their relationship professional for the sake of ABBA. They still had commitments, albums to record, and concerts to perform, but the emotional distance between them was hard to ignore. On stage, they smiled and danced, but offstage, things were much colder. Agnetha once said that during this time, she often felt like she was just playing a role rather than truly enjoying the performances. She struggled with depression and anxiety, partly due to the breakup and partly due to the overwhelming demands of fame. Traveling also became a nightmare for her, as she suffered from a strong fear of flying. During ABBA tours, she sometimes experienced panic attacks on airplanes, which made life on the road even more stressful. Björn, on the other hand, buried himself in songwriting with Benny Andersson. The two men were determined to keep ABBA's career alive, and they worked tirelessly on albums like Super Trooper and The Visitors. These records reflected a darker, more mature side of ABBA's music, filled with themes of love, loss, loneliness, and emotional struggle. The lyrics often mirrored the band members' personal lives, as Benny also went through a divorce with Frida around the same time. By 1982, both couples in ABBA were divorced, and the tension within the group had reached its peak. That year, ABBA released their final album before taking a long break. Officially, they never announced a breakup, but it was clear that the emotional strain had taken its toll. Björn and Agnetha's story had moved from young love and success to heartbreak and distance. While their marriage was over, the music they created during those painful years continued to resonate with fans around the world. In the years after ABBA's unofficial breakup, Björn's life took a new direction. In 1981, just 2 years after his divorce from Agnetha, he married journalist and music writer Lena. This marriage proved to be more stable, and the couple went on to have 2 daughters together. Björn often said that Lena brought him peace and balance after the stormy years of fame and heartbreak. With Benny, he continued to write music, moving more into musicals and theatrical productions rather than pop hits. Together, they created successful shows like Chess in 1984, which included the famous song One Night in Bangkok. Over the years, Björn and Benny became highly respected as composers beyond ABBA. But even as he moved forward, Björn was often asked about his past with Agnetha. Journalists wanted to know how it felt to work so closely with his ex-wife and whether their songs were truly autobiographical. Björn usually kept his answers calm and professional, but at times he admitted that their marriage had been very difficult and filled with emotional challenges. He also confessed that writing The Winner Takes It All was a form of therapy for him, helping him process the pain of separation. Agnetha, on the other hand, largely stepped out of the spotlight. She released some solo music in the 1980s, but eventually chose to live a quiet life away from fame. She preferred raising her children and living privately rather than constantly being in the media. Their paths rarely crossed in public, but the memory of their relationship lived on in ABBA's music, which continued to be loved by millions of fans. For Björn, the years after ABBA allowed him to heal, build a new family, and find a more stable rhythm in life. Yet, he could never fully escape the shadow of his past with Agnetha. Decades later, the story of Björn and Agnetha's marriage remains one of the most talked about aspects of ABBA's history. Fans are still fascinated by how their personal heartbreak created some of the greatest pop songs of all time. Björn has, in recent years, opened up more about those difficult times, calling them nightmares that shaped him both as a person and as a songwriter. He admitted that it was emotionally painful to see his marriage fall apart while the whole world was watching. At the same time, he recognized that without those experiences, ABBA's music might not have had the same emotional depth. The struggles gave their songs authenticity and made them relatable to millions of listeners who had also experienced heartbreak. Agnetha, too, has spoken about the challenges of being married to someone so focused on music and fame. She described the loneliness she often felt, the exhaustion of constant touring, and the difficulty of raising children under the spotlight. Even though they both moved on with their lives, the memories of that time remain sharp. When ABBA reunited in 2021 to release their comeback album, Voyage, fans were reminded once again of the bond, both musical and personal, that still connects them. Björn and Agnetha may never have repaired their romantic relationship, but their shared history continues to inspire new generations of fans. Their story is a powerful reminder that even behind the brightest lights of fame, real human struggles exist. And sometimes, those struggles can lead to art that lives forever.